Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop. And this is my first impressions look on the Nike KD18, and this is the black label colorway. So this was a pretty limited release. They actually only had 1,988 pairs, I believe it was, which is kind of insane. And mine says one of 1988, which is pretty cool. So this specific colorway and this specific shoe retails for 180 bucks, which is pretty dang expensive. The regular or the normal KD18 is supposed to retail for 150 bucks, staying the same exact price as its predecessor, the KD17. And also it says it's not intended for basketball. It says it's actually intended for casual use, and it's also intended to be a collectible, which is pretty weird, right? But yeah, this is a really dope colorway, but I am a little bit disappointed in it, which we'll get into. And the KD18 is supposed to release summer of 2025, so in like 4 months, right? So anyways, let's get it started off with the traction. So the traction pattern looks very similar, right? It is. It's not pretty similar. It's pretty much identical to the KD17, which is, I've never seen this happen before. You know what I mean? Like, maybe Nike is just getting lazy, or they're trying to save money or something, because for a signature shoe line, they never do this. For like they're like a budget shoe line, you know, like a takedown model or a team model, companies do this all the time. You can see it in Nike, Adidas, you know, Under Armour does it a lot nowadays, you know, recycling outsoles and midsoles. And also if you look at like the KD trays, they used to do that all the time. The Kobe mentalities used to do that, you know, Kobe's kind of takedown model. The Giannis immortalities do that, you know, the Kyrie fly traps did that. So the takedown model, they always did that, right? But for the signature model, they never did that. Even though they were using pretty similar tech as far as like the cushioning setup goes, they never had the same exact outsole pattern as well as the same exact cushioning setup. So yeah, it's pretty much recycled from the KD17. The outsole pattern, the cushioning setup, and even it says easy right here on the back. You know what I mean? So that's a little bit disappointing, but yeah, the KD18, how does the traction feel? It feels really nice, right? Just trying it on my whip floors is a really nice bite. And the KD17 for me had really nice traction as well. So I feel like, you know, if they kept the rubber compound the same, this shoe is going to have really nice traction, which I'm very happy about. Also for dust performance, it feels like it'll be pretty good, right? You can see some dog hair, some dust right here, but it's still biting through all of that pretty dang well on my wood floors. Of course, my wood floors are a little bit different than the actual basketball court. So yeah, the finish is a little bit different. So it'll probably be a little bit different for actual performance, but just from my first impressions, it's feeling pretty good so far. And as far as the durability goes, durability does not seem good, right? The grooves are actually pretty dang thin, and also the rubber is actually pretty dang soft, right? So if you're playing on an outdoor court, I feel like, you know, you're gonna rip through this very easily, and it's gonna kind of like wear out very quickly. So outdoor use, probably not the best. And as far as the squeak goes, this shoe has a little bit of a squeak. You know, it's not super loud, not super high pitched, but it does have a pretty nice squeak. So of course that has nothing to do with performance, but if you like to have a nice little squeak, then this shoe has got you covered. So there is the traction there. Moving on to the heel to toe transition, it feels very smooth, right? So here in the heel, we got a nice kind of like rounded and curved shape, which does feel pretty dang nice. Although the back of the heel is pretty much fully caged by the outsole, the lateral part of the heel is exposed, and the Cushlon foam has a good amount of compression, which makes the heel overall pretty dang soft. And also here in the forefoot, we have a nice curved shape. So just from the overall shape, it feels smooth. And as far as the forefoot goes, we have actually a pretty stiff feeling forefoot, you know what I mean? And also a nice little kind of rebound back, you know what I mean? Like, it's actually pretty tough. I can't even bend it with my fingers. I have to put like my entire hand into it. Usually like shoes that are really flexible, I can just flex it with one finger, right? So you do have to put a good amount of force into it to bend it, and then it seems like there's a little bit of rebound back, which does feel nice. It feels more on the springier side of things, which is great, you know what I mean? So overall, heel to toe transition feels very smooth and also a little springy, which is nice, right? So there's that. Moving on to the cushioning setup. So like I said, it's pretty much identical to the KD17, which is yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite, you know, but it's not bad, right? So here for the foam, they're using Cushlon, but in this colorway, the foam texture is pretty interesting. It has a very kind of like flat finish to it, but yeah, it's just Cushlon. There's a nice compression here in the heel, like I said, which does feel nice and comfortable. Overall court feel is pretty good. I would say around average to maybe slightly better than average. And as far as the insole goes, the insole is trash. The insole is very, very thin, which, you know, you don't really need a really thick insole because they are using an air strobo unit. But yeah, it's not very nice. You know what I mean? It's a really thin, very cheap feeling insole. It also has a number 18, of course, for the KD18. And then in the heel, as well as kind of into the midfoot, we have an air strobo unit identical to the KD17, which I really like. You know, I do like air strobo. Just like kind of walking around, it feels really soft and comfortable. There's a nice bit of compression. Not super bouncy when you're just standing around, right? But once you start going, it starts to feel a little bit bouncier. Of course, never as bouncy as Zoom, but I don't really mind it all too much. It feels really nice for me personally. I feel like, you know, if you want a little bit more bounce, then obviously a Zoom will be better. But for me, I still like how it feels, right? And then in the forefoot, identical to the KD17, you have that plastic plate, you know what I mean? So yeah, they're saying there's a very large volume zoom unit in the forefoot. And yeah, I mean, I'm not that heavy, so just walking around, I can't really feel it all too much. Same thing with the KD17. Once I started playing, I could feel it a little bit, but you know, not even that much. It's not super bouncy. There's not that much compression for me personally. So yeah, it kind of sucks. And they said they added that plastic plate for stability, which I guess that makes sense, but why would you add plastic? You know what I mean? I guess like in the sense of like if you want more of like a trampoline feel, you know, if you don't want like your foot digging into the zoom unit, which I guess technically could be feel a little bit mushy. You know, I feel like if you want a really like stiff setup, really responsive setup, then I guess that would make sense. But for the most part, I feel like most people want to feel a little bit of kind of like cushion right underneath your foot, you know what I mean? And they also say it's supposed to be like poppy zoom unit. It's supposed to be springy as well out of your first step. Yeah, no, for me, not that much, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's the same exact setup as the KD17. Again, it's pretty nice, but not my favorite. So there is the cushioning setup there. Moving on to the upper. So the upper actually is pretty dang nice, right? So they're saying it's an open hold sandwich mesh and it's supposed to have good breathability. As far as the airflow goes, it doesn't seem that good, right? There's a little bit of airflow, but it's not super good, you know what I mean? Just a tiny bit. But yeah, here in the toe box, it actually feels pretty nice. The quality of the mesh doesn't feel the greatest, however, you know what I mean? Although it doesn't feel super cheap, you know, like the crap mesh that Nike uses for their cheaper shoes around $100. It definitely feels a little bit better than that, but still kind of on the cheaper side of things, right? Especially since this shoe, specifically this colorway is $180, you know what I mean? But I do like the addition of this material, right? So it seems like a synthetic material with this rough texture on it. But yeah, it pretty much covers the tip of the toe, and we have these kind of like two lines going up into the toe box, and it's more on the sides, right? And then we have the same mesh here on the lateral and medial side of the shoe. So just these two lines adds a little bit more kind of like structural support, just a tiny bit, you know what I mean? Also with this open mesh, this mesh material is a little bit kind of like stiffer and a little bit more supportive feeling than the KD17. The KD17 was just really terrible for support, and also quality, this one definitely feels a lot better. So I do like that, but it's still really soft, conforms to my foot very well, and very comfortable here in the toe box, right? And then coming here into the midfoot, we have this kind of like plastic cage. We have a very soft kind of like rubbery plastic on it as well. When I first saw it, I thought it would be a lot thicker and a lot like kind of stiffer, but it's actually a lot softer than I thought. But still way better than the KD17 cage, right? So yeah, this actual design, this cage, first of all, in this colorway looks really cool. I love the design on it. We got some little spiky parts on it too. But yeah, the rubber cage is inspired by the Terra Humara. So yeah, that's a pretty cool inspiration. So this plastic cage comes down to cage the actual midsole, which gives it better stability, and also comes up with these fingers to give the overall upper some more structural rigidity as well. And I really like it, you know what I mean? It's not too stiff and not too thick, but also not too soft or anything like that. It gives it a really nice kind of structural support, and also it looks really nice, right? For the tongue, we have, you know, KD's logo here, and it is embroidered at the top of the tongue. It's also not very well padded, you know what I mean? Like I would say less than average, not super cozy. It also has KD's logo as well as the Nike swoosh on it. And then it's also a half booty construction tongue, giving you a better overall one-to-one fit. And then here in the ankle area, same thing, we got KD's logo and also the swoosh on it. And as far as the padding goes, it's around average, not super well padded, but not super minimal either. Not a crazy amount of coziness, but it feels alright, right? And as far as the overall padding goes, it's pretty equal from the size of the ankle part to where your Achilles is. Usually there's a little bit more padding here in the back of the heel where your Achilles is, but in this shoe it's around the same, right? So yeah, the upper I definitely feel like is pretty dang nice. For 180 bucks, not the best, but I guess like for 150 bucks, which is supposed to be the real retail price of the KD18, with this kind of like open hold sandwich mesh, I feel like it's pretty nice, right? And also with the plastic cage, but in this colorway, we have the rubbery plastic, and the kind of like leaked images we saw like a really crappy looking synthetic material. Well, we'll have to see on if the plastic cage is different, but it probably won't be, right? So yeah, I do like how it feels on foot. And now moving on to the fit. So I went true to size, and this shoe fits me very, very nicely, right? So lengthwise, going true to size is perfect for me, right? And it's really, really snug. My toes go very close to the edge of the shoe. So if you don't like that, maybe go up half a size. But again, if you like to have a snug fit, you should be fine going true to size. Also here in the toe box, it's kind of snug, but not super snug, right? And also there is a good amount of forgiveness here in the toe box, right? So I can curl my toes up a little bit, actually a good amount. So that feels pretty nice and cozy, you know what I mean? But for me personally, I like to have something a little bit more tight in the toe box. So yeah, I feel like it's because of this mesh material. If it was a different material like leather, I feel like it would be a little bit more snug, but like I said, it stretches a tiny bit, you know? Also for the width, it is slightly narrow like all KDs are usually. So yeah, going true to size, it's a nice snug fit for me. And now moving on to the support and lockdown. Yeah, so that definitely feels like a huge improvement for me personally coming from the KD17. The KD17, the upper was just not super supportive, right? So yeah, first of all, we have this plastic cage, right? And it literally cages the entire lateral side of the shoe, right? So here in the forefoot, here in the midfoot, as well as here in the heel. Like I said, it's not a super stiff plastic piece, but it also does give a good amount of kind of like structural support here, right? Lateral support. There's also an internal TPU heel counter. We also have a mini swoosh here in the heel, and it's embroidered. It's kind of like an outline swoosh. So lateral containment feels like it's gonna be very good, and also lateral stability feels like it'll be pretty good as well, right? We have not a super kind of like crazy outrigger, but we do have a pretty wide base here. And also the structural support, like I said, from this cage seems pretty good, right? Like I said, it's a thinner type of rubber material, but I feel like it adds a good amount to the overall support, because if it was just this mesh material, it definitely would not be supportive at all, right? And also I'm not really experiencing any type of heel slippage, which is good. So yeah, support and lockdown definitely feels pretty dang good and a lot better than the KD17. And now moving on to the weight of the shoe, I feel like this shoe's probably a little bit heavier than average, maybe around 13 ounces, right? Ooh, no, it's 13.65 ounces. Let's check the other shoe. 13.7 ounces. So the average weight of my shoes is around 12.5 ounces. And due to like the recent improvement in tech, you know, like cushions getting a lot lighter and stuff like that, and the uppers that companies are using while still keeping good support, I feel like the average weight of my shoes is around 12 ounces now. You know what I mean? It's gotten a lot lighter while still having a really nice supportive feel to most modern basketball shoes. But anyways, yeah, 13.5 ounces, that is on the heavier side of things. Not super heavy, but yeah, it definitely is a little bit heavier. But I feel like, you know, it doesn't feel super bulky, and it feels like it'll be pretty responsive, you know? The traction feels good, the cushion feels comfortable, but also responsive, especially with the plastic plate in the forefoot. Support feels good, you know? So yeah, overall, it's feeling pretty dang nice on foot, right? And now moving on to the aesthetics, yeah, I take it back. You know, at first, I really didn't like how it looked, especially with that really bright colorway that came out with the leak, right? But this colorway looks freaking amazing, first of all, this all black. But also, I really love the design on the cage, you know? So yeah, and also on the left pair, it says Black Label, and then on the right pair, it says the number, right? So tell us what you guys think of the aesthetics down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, yeah, the KD18 feels really, really nice so far. The problems that I had about the KD17 that I didn't really like too much, I mean, the KD17 was overall a solid performer, but just not my favorite, right? It seems to have been addressed here in the KD18. However, it feels like a KD17.5 or like a KD17 Elite to me, you know what I mean? Not even elite, more like just a 0.5, you know, or a version 2 V2, because there hasn't been any significant improvement in like the cushion. It wouldn't be elite, but anyways, still, it is an improvement, and I do like how it feels so far. So anyways, that about concludes my first impressions look on the Nike KD 18. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.